For the past 16 years, writer and radio personality Sandra has built a reputation for making science fun with her daily program, The Lowdown on Science. With the outbreak of COVID-19, she's launched a new 8-week series inspired by listener requests that explores the science and history of pandemics in, get this everybody, 3-minute episodes. It's called The Lowdown on Science Special Pandemic Edition. And Sandra joins us now via Skype this morning to tell us more. Hey there, Sandra. Good morning to you. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us.
Good morning. Very happy to be joining you today.
So right off the top here, I'm like really intrigued by you do this in 3 minutes. You know, I mean, science is a big, hefty topic, and due to COVID-19, science has never been quite so relevant. But it's a subject that, as I said, it's like really technical and weighty. So what's your process and your approach to how you do this? It's such a serious thing in only 3 minutes.
Well, I graduated from Caltech in 1983. In the Stone Ages, in physics. So I both have a scientific background, but also know how difficult it can be to understand science. And some scientists, you know, they're left brain, so they can speak in a very jargony way and use a lot of technical language because they want to be right and they want to be accurate. So they don't always go to the big picture to tell you why science is relevant. But science is such an important story to tell today. Because science is so relevant. Science is the world that we live in. So we, just always began by breaking it down into language that everyone can understand, so that you can be curious about science, can be curious to learn more and how science can solve the world's problems. So we do it kind of with a little bit of a sense of humor. There's sort of a joke at the top and joke at the bottom. And, we get into the technical stuff in the middle. A lot of people listen to radio on KPCC and SCPR in their cars. So while they're driving, we have to make sure that we have a hook at the beginning so that they don't turn, the stakes away.
What we call it, Giselle here, Sandra, you know what we call that? We call that ice cream broccoli. We get you with a little ice cream, then we give you the broccoli.
Thank you. That's exactly right.
That's right. So let me ask you this, though. When science, which is, fact-based, gets politicized, as it often does, and you've got the WHO saying one thing, Dr. Fauci saying another, the President of the United States saying another thing, and then local leaders of various states saying yet another. How do you, deliver science as pure science without the politicization?
Well, that's a great question, and we feel that everybody is curious about how science actually works. So we try not to take any particular side, but just kind of look at the science underneath and what is understood and what we know and what we don't know. And like one of the pieces that we've done recently is on the science of uncertainty. So science has a lot of uncertainty built in that we don't know, but news headlines don't want to say, well, it's 67% likely that 20% of this 42%, people trial, work. They have to do a big headline. So that's why we have, as long as 3 minutes or 90 seconds in some cases to just try to break down the science without having it necessarily be a big headline.
Well, you have this tradition of having your long-running series created by what you call, quote, a hive, rather than a staff of writers and editors. So tell us about this team behind this edition and then your role as producing and bringing it together.
Well, we call it the hive, and I'm sort of the queen bee of the hive. I just bring
You just wanted to call yourself the queen bee. That's why you call it a hive.
Oh, thank you. Now the secret is out. We found that scientists actually can be trained to be fantastic communicators, particularly, if I may say, if they're young and not tenured. And there's Baha Rasouri, one of our great hivers, as we call them. And they're very in Stella Moon. And they're really good at understanding what I call the rules of rhetoric and breaking. There's Kellen Kartub. And they're UCI graduate students from Irvine. They're all scientists. A couple of them are emeriti. There's Ted Yu, and they record these in their closets. So
it's guerrilla warfare.
They're Sandra Norman at Caltech. So they're on Zoom and on Google and on Slack, and they're continually clicking away at all hours of the day or night, and they inspire each other and they make each other get better. So I think this is kind of like almost like the universities of the future, which will not be all online.
And they inspire our kids too. I know my daughter is so inspired when they see these wonderful, brilliant women scientists. Let me ask you a question before we leave. So the president makes these remarks about, you know, light infused into the body along with disinfectants. How do you deal with something like that in your show?
As I said, we just break it down and try to figure out what the scientist is, what the history is, and actually we look for positive stories. For instance, there's an institution called Folding at Home where you can have your own home computer with a game card and link it at night to run to make a supercomputer of tens of thousands of other laptops to find a cure for coronavirus. And they did it for Ebola. So we look for a lot of positive stories here. And if there's a silver lining coming out of the pandemic with all this teleconferencing is up 2,000%, that's amazing for accessibility issues of people who might have difficulty getting to a meeting. So we look for the silver lining in this and stay positive, because everybody has to keep learning, especially kids at home with their families, to keep inspired for a next generation of virologists and urban planners and computer designers for the future.
Well, you are a silver lining. We're going to add that to your title. You, Sandra.
Queen Bee.
Queen Bee.
Silver lining.
Silver liner.
Yeah, silver liner.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sandra. We'll be back.